Altogether, there are 18 chapters available in F2, which is management accounting. 18 chapters. Right. While we start one by one, you might feel that these already we know, but we are going on a proper way. Therefore, it will be covering, as I said, for your second and final level. Right. Now, we are starting with chapter number 1, which is called accounting for management, data and presenting information, cost classification and behavior, forecasting techniques, summarizing and analyzing data, accounting for materials, accounting for labor, accounting for overheads, process costing, costing methods, setting budgets, implementing budgets, project appraisal, standard costing, variance analysis, target setting, financial performance measurement, and assessing non-financial performance. Therefore, these are the 18 chapters. These are the 18 chapters that we will be covering one by one. Right now, normally what I will do is, normally I will start with chapter number 3, cost classifications and behavior. Because these are little numbers and easy stuff. And after that, we'll come back to the first 2 chapters and I'll go on that particular order. Right? Therefore, we'll be starting with today the cost classification and behavior. Cost classification and behavior. Anyway, we have budgeted around between 40 to 60 hours, right? Therefore, in that range, we'll be covering your total syllabus. Right?
What I meant is the hours.
Hours.
Yeah.
40 to, therefore, we'll be covering all these 18 chapters.
40 hours.
Between 40 to 60.
Based on the speed of the student, the teacher, and the environment.
And all these things. Right. What I will do is, I will be discussing chapter by chapter with small examples which will make you understand the theory part. Right. Therefore, the revision kit which I have given by Mr. Sashika, that you have to do it. Otherwise, we can't do both at once in the classroom. We cannot cover within 40 hours time. Right, therefore, here on that revision kit, chapter by chapter, when we start, you can see that. You have any doubts, any questions that we can discuss in the classroom. Right, therefore, I will be not doing fully. Right, therefore, I will be discussing theoretically and put some examples related to each areas. Okay. This is about chapter number 3, cost classification and behavior. Right? It will be normally divided into these different areas: cost code, cost estimation, collecting cost information, cost classification, direct and indirect cost, and cost behavior and output. Now, maybe you have studied earlier. Early days, we have a subject called cost accounting. Now, if you see all the professional exams, whether it can be ACCA, CIMA, CA, whatever, that name changed to management accounting. That name is changed to management accounting. Right? Therefore, in management accounting, as part of your syllabus content, cost accounting is included in with that particular syllabus. Because now my organization look for information for the decision making. Organization look for information for decision making. This information can be generated from different sources. Can be generated through different sources. One of that source is costing. But from that also you can generate different type of information. Therefore, if you say, if I say this is my management accounting syllabus. If you say this is my management accounting syllabus, I can say around 40% weightage for your cost accounting. Around 40% weightage for your cost accounting. Right? The remaining 60% other factors, decision making techniques, external factors, internal factors, forecasting techniques, Now early days, you might say, there is a subject called business mathematics. Part of your CIMA syllabus, even ACCA the early days, business mathematics is there. Right, under business mathematics, we will be studying forecasting techniques now. That forecasting techniques now added to this subject. Right, therefore, everything is bundled out. We call that now management accounting, MA. Right, also now here we will see there is something called presenting information. Presenting information. Presenting information means how we will present our information to the management, for example, to our juniors, to our seniors. We will use Excel, PowerPoint. Right, we do the calculations, we have to present that to the management. Therefore, with all these latest technologies that we can present. Therefore, that also a part of the subject. Clear? And also, if you see the syllabus, we have an area called this one. Project appraisal, implementing budgets and project appraisal. Purely, this is about investment appraisals. How do you evaluate a project? You will study here NPV, IRR, all this stuff here. Therefore, this management accounting subject is a combination, is a basic foundation that you will get for your remaining other courses. Right? Thus, costing as a separate subjects not more available. But as I told you, as part of your total MA syllabus, around 30 to 40% of the weightage which comes through costing. Clear? Therefore, we will be starting with chapter number 3, which is cost classification. You can put a heading, cost classification and behavior. See, these graphs and all will be coming as a part of presenting information. Right? Most of the stuffs are based on Excel and all the stuff. Cost classification and behavior. Now we are talking about cost, right? Now what is actually cost? How we can define cost? Right? Now say for example, this mobile has a value, 1000 riyal for example. Right? And you have paid tuition fees here. Right? And you are coming from one location to another location. There is a transport expense for you. The time. Right? Therefore, for all this, you can relate that with a financial value, a dollar value. Therefore, if you take a business organization, right, there are different type of expenses they incur day to day. Right? If you take a trading business, for example, they are buying and selling, right? They incur different type of expenses. Cost of purchase, cost of buying materials, right? Salaries, electricity, rent for the building, right? Any other telephone, all these expenses. Buying fixed assets like furniture, motor vehicles, right? You pay sales commission, penalties will be there, rent will be there. Therefore, there will be different type of expenses you are incurring in a business on a day-to-day activity. That's a trading business. If I take a manufacturing business, right? For example, we are producing water bottle, for example, right? If you take a manufacturing business, some expenses are directly attached to the final product. Some expenses related to the final product. For example, this particular capsule, right? Because we are working on a company like this, you know, these water bottles comes with small capsules. The capsules will be put into one pressure machine. It will come to different size. Therefore, there is a cost incurring. Please answer. Right? There is a cost related to production. Some costs are directly involving on production. For example, a labor, a machine supervisor, for example. He is monitoring the machine operation, how the machines are moving and all those stuff. Therefore, some expenses which are directly attributable to that particular product or services. Say now here I am doing a lecture, right? 7 to 9, 2 hours. There's cost for me through this organization. Therefore, this particular 2 hours I am involving on doing some part of services to you all. There's a cost associated with this. But if you take this building for example, after 2 hours also building is still available. There is a rent paid for the building, electricity expenses are there, and all other relevant expenses are there. Now if you take a manufacturing type of business for example, production, some of them we call they are direct cost. Examples, not only for manufacturing, it can be for any business, right? Some of them are direct cost, other we call indirect cost. Now what is direct cost? The direct cost is a cost which is attributed to particular product or services. So for example, if I produce this, I need to have the material, I need to have the labor, and also I need to have some other direct expenses which are directly attributable to this. Some other expenses are not directly attributable. For example, you have a production supervisor. That gentleman is not doing production, supervising the laborers. Therefore, that supervisor will be today on this plant, tomorrow will be in another process, day after tomorrow will be another factory. Therefore, the salary paid to that particular supervisor also cost to the company. Also cost to the company, but is not directly attributable to the particular product or services. Anyway, now we are talking about cost. How we can define cost? What is cost? Now I told you, you are paying a tuition fee. It's a cost you are. Right? The transportation cost. Cost of paying electricity. Therefore, cost is nothing else. It's a value or price attached to a product or services. If you are buying a product or buying a service. Or expenses accumulated to produce the product or services. If you are buying, say for example, you give 10 real to buy this. Therefore, that's the price you paid to buy. Therefore, cost of buying this, cost of this bottle is 10 real for you. If you take a factory for example, they are doing the production of this. They buy the material. Expenses for material. Expenses for labor. Therefore, there is a cost associated of producing this. Therefore, the price attached to buy a product or services or the expenses which are attached of producing the product or services.
So basically you have two definitions.
Either it can be price or it can be expenses. Or, yes, one definition you can put into two parts. First part is in terms of your buying that.
One is price is attached.
Or the expenses accumulated of producing that product or services. That is simply we call cost. Right? Therefore, we can write down cost. The total amount paid to be purchase goods. The total amount paid to be purchase goods or services the total amount paid to be purchase goods or services, or total expenses incurred to produce goods or services. That is we call cost.
Yeah, you can say total expenses or accumulated expenses incurred to produce.
Yes.
Both are same.
Yeah, almost same. Right? Accumulated. Right? In order to produce that particular product or services. Therefore, this is the definition of cost. Right? Therefore, now, as I mentioned earlier, some of them are directly attributable. That is we call direct cost. Some of them are indirectly attributable. Some of them are directly attributable, some of them are indirectly attributable. Direct attributable, for example, the material which I used to buy to do the production of this particular capsule, the water, the lids.
For manufacturing.
Yes, for manufacturing purpose. So, for example, if I take this classroom, it's not manufacturing, it's a service related to this class. Now, what is the direct cost? My lecture fees, for example. My labor cost. There will be an agreed rate. Right? For example, say if I am a full-time employee here, if I am a full-time employee, my cost will be based on my salaries. Right? Say for example, this is 100% college. I am working as a lecturer here. I am not a visiting lecturer. Therefore, I will be getting my monthly salary. Even there is classes, there is no classes, I will get my salary end of the month. Now, here is a different agreements, right? Therefore, how do I perform my activities? For that, I will get paid. Clear? Therefore, that also will come. That's called fixed cost and variable cost. Therefore, the cost also you can be classified based on different, the way it behaves, based on the nature of the cost, it can be classified in a different way. Now, direct cost and indirect cost, we'll talk about that, we'll move. Right?
In this case, you are now giving a service. Okay,
Yes.
for us it is a cost.
Yes.
Okay, and for you it's a...
For me it's not a cost.
And in your case, you are giving the service, the time.
Yes. Now,
So-
see, it's a cost for you also,
Yeah.
for cost for the management.
Yeah, management cost for you.
Right. The for cost for you, you know what? Not my lecture fees. Cost for you what? The tuition fees you pay to the management, the company. That's the cost for you. What's the cost for the management? That tuition fees that I will get, compensated amount that I will get, that's a cost for the management. Therefore, conducting this particular process, conducting this session, cost activities are involved. Not only that, electricity. 2 hours they have to use this electricity, air condition, this particular television, for example, TV. Therefore, all these costs are related to this particular activity. Similar stuff, if you take organization, you have rent, you have electricity, you have salaries for your employees, vehicles, depreciation of machineries, rent for the building. And when you come to manufacturing entity, now most of the time when you come to the costing part, we discuss about manufacturing entities because most are related to that stuff, manufacturing business. When you come to the manufacturing business, some costs are directly attributable for the manufacturing stuff. Some of them are no. Now you have a factory machinery. There is a machine available in the factory. Depreciation of that machine. And there is a computer available in accountant's office, head office. Depreciation of that particular computer. Two different stuff. Because within the factory, machines available which is used for production, but they are not directly involved. Cost, indirect cost. Indirect cost. Right, there is a machinery available in head office, accountant's premises. There is a laptop available which is get depreciated. That also indirect cost only, but that is not related to production. That's not related to production. That is we call non-production cost. Cost only, right? Direct cost, indirect cost. Indirect cost can be production related. Indirect cost can be non-production related. Clear? Right. Therefore, you can put a small heading. Next one, direct cost.
So basically, cost can be classified into two:
Yes.
direct and indirect.
Yes.
Now we are starting on the direct one.
Yeah. Cost can be classified based on the classification. Later, we will differentiate the cost again based on behavior also. Cost behavior. How the cost will behave. On that case, we discuss about fixed cost, variable cost, all the stuff. Based on the classification, based on behavior. Right? Therefore, you can say now, direct cost.
So in short, classification wise also you can segregate.
Behavior also you can segregate. Yes. Direct cost, you can write down under that. The costs which are directly attributable. Costs which are directly attributable. Costs which are directly attributable to a product or service. To a product or service, which is called direct cost. Next one, indirect cost. The costs which are indirectly attributable. The costs which are indirectly attributable. Inside the bracket indirect, you can say production and non-production. You can say production and non-production, close the bracket. Indirectly attributable to product or service, which are called indirect cost. If we take, for example, a manufacturing organization, as I mentioned earlier, this cost of this particular materials is a direct materials. Direct materials. And for the factory, we have a machine. Machine is using some type of oils to service the machine. End of the day, when I see this product, I didn't see that oil here. That oil is used to service the machine. Without servicing that machine, I cannot produce this. But what I see here, the water and the material, the plastic, these are direct materials. The oil used to service that machinery within the factory, which is indirect material. Indirectly attributable for production, but not available in my final output. Clear? Right, not available in my final output. Therefore, that's an example of indirect materials. Take indirect labor. I am a machine assembly worker, for example. I work in that particular plant or process. Therefore, I will be involving of producing this directly. Therefore, the labor cost which I paid to me is a direct labor cost out of final this cost of this product, which is included. My cost also included here. And then we have a supervisor or we have a maintenance person. His job is nothing else to make sure all the machines are running, make sure up and running. All the machines are running, up and running. Therefore, that's his job. His job is not to involve in production, to make sure machines are up and running. Therefore, the salary paid to that particular supervisor, the maintenance person, the engineer, who works within the factory. Therefore, that particular person's salary is also labor cost, but that is indirect labor cost. Indirect labor cost. The other one is, we have, say for example, depreciation of a machinery which is used within the factory. Is indirect cost also, expense, but not directly involving on your material direct production. Therefore, that's an example of another indirect cost. And therefore, based on this, we can classify the total material cost into direct and indirect. total labor cost, direct and indirect. And total all other expenses excluding material and labor. Material also expense only. Labor cost also expense only. But these two are the major portion of your final output. We are differentiate them separately. Material cost, labor cost. And other expenses, for example. Say, for example, we are producing this Qatar Oasis water. This might have a franchise agreement with another company, foreign organization. Therefore, you might pay to use the name. For example, ACCA is a UK body, right? To conduct exams, we have to pay them annually a subscription fees. To conduct exams in Sri Lanka, we do that. Like that, some expenses which you pay part of this product. Like for example, to use this name, you have to pay some expenses. Therefore, say 50 dirhams per bottle, for example. Therefore, that is cost of this particular final product. Therefore, that is a direct expense of this particular final output. Therefore, some expenses are not direct, excluding your labor and material, some other expenses, which are indirect expenses. Therefore, the total cost, you can say total material cost, total labor cost and total expenses, other expenses. Therefore, total of these three is a total cost of that particular activity. Total cost of conducting this class, for example, for the next 40 hours, there is a material cost, there is a labor cost, there is other expenses, there is a fees we are going to pay to ACCA, for example. Therefore, total of all these, a total cost of running the department, total cost of running this particular process, total cost of running this particular lectures for next 40 hours. Therefore, the cost is, is a combination of different elements. Some of them are direct elements. Under direct, it can be material related classification, it can be labor, it can be some other expenses. Some of them are indirect elements. Right? Therefore, is a total cost is a combination of different elements. Based on that, we can prepare a small table how you can classify that to arrive that total cost. Clear? That I will write down and show you. Therefore, the material cost I can say direct materials plus indirect materials. Direct material plus indirect materials. Labor, total labor cost, you will say direct labor plus indirect labor. Direct labor plus indirect labor. The other one is the other expenses, excluding material and labor. You might ask a question, why those two are also expenses? Why we are showing it separately? Because if you take any cost element, major portion arises from direct or material or labor. Now, for example, if it's a manufacturing, production related business, major portions are material. If it's a sales related business, major portions are labor, for example. Labor. For example, if you take a salon, barber is using 1 hour for the haircut, major time is his time compared to the materials. Therefore, these two elements, material and labor, we are separate them from your total cost. Excluding material and labor, all other elements are your expenses.
So other expenses?
Other expenses.
Excluding direct and,
material and labor. Yeah, normally we will say expenses. That is excluding your material and labor. Material and labor. But therefore, it can be direct expense, it can be indirect expense. Now, the total of these three, which is your total cost. Which is your total cost. What is total cost? Your total material cost, total labor cost and total expenses. The direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, which is we call direct cost. direct cost, plus the total of IDM, IDL and IDA, indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expenses, which we call indirect cost. Indirect cost. Therefore, total cost is equals to your direct cost plus indirect cost. Now, if I just write it in a different color, the total cost is equals to
Next one. First one.
this one, right?
No. Click that.
Okay.
You need to click, then the color will change.
Total cost is equals to direct cost plus indirect cost. Total cost is equal to direct cost plus indirect cost.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the same presentation, I will present to you in a different way. Right? The same total cost is your direct cost plus indirect cost, that we will present that in a different way. Right? Now, normally, for whatever the activity, you can estimate a cost. You can estimate a cost. I am 100% sure before starting this course, you have put a plan or budget, how much will cost you for this total ACCA journey. Examination fees, tuition fees, other expenses, materials, all this stuff. Therefore, you have developed a predetermined cost. What will be my total cost of this particular project? What's my total cost of this particular activity? Right? Therefore, what is my total cost? This is useful, better for you know why? To plan yourself. Right? To plan based on your cash flows and all that stuff. Similar to that, if you take organizations, before they start production, what they do an estimation. What the cost of producing these units? How much will cost? What are the costs related? What will be the direct material cost? What will be the direct labor cost? If you say direct labor, how many labor hours you need? What is the labor rate? What is the labor per hour? How much we have to pay for labor? What are the other expenses attached to this particular final product? Therefore, you do an estimation. Right? Normally, manufacturing organization, you have that type of estimation. We can put that into a cost card. Therefore, cost card, I cannot say is 100% actual. It's an estimation which is predetermined based on your past experience. Therefore, it can be vary plus minus. Sometimes your actual cost will be a little higher than the estimation. Or actual cost will be lower compared to your predetermined standard cost. Therefore, normally we develop the same thing that I can present in a different way using a different format that we call cost card. The cost card. Right? Therefore, I'll show you how the cost card looks like. Therefore, we'll normally say the cost card. Right? In the cost card, what we have done here already, we have direct material, direct labor, direct expenses. The word comes direct means they are attributable to that particular final product or services. Right? If I want to see the cost of this, one element of this cost is direct material. One element of this cost is direct labor. One element of that cost is any other direct expenses. Therefore, these three. Right? Therefore, the same thing I am going to represent in a different way. The first one is we call direct cost. So, direct material. Right? We assume some amount. We assume per unit. say $1 per unit, $2 per unit, or something like that. Right? Direct labor. And another one is say direct expenses. Now, if you take, for example, sales commission. Sales commission is what?
Indirect.
Direct or indirect?
Sales commission.
To the particular salesperson's salary, if he is not performing any sales, you are paying a commission? No. Alright? If you pay commission when
The sales.
sales occurs, right? Therefore, what type of nature is that? Is changing against activity. Changing against activity. If the performance are done, there is a commission given, otherwise no commission. Right? Now, for example, depreciation of office machinery. What is that?
Indirect.
Indirect expense. Like that you can differentiate. Therefore, direct expense,
So the sales commission is indirect, right?
sales commission is indirect. Right.
But it's variable.
It's very, yeah. That was a complete, it's very, yes.
There's bit of a overlapping scenarios there.
Yes. Therefore, total of these three, which we call direct cost. Direct cost. Direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. By keeping this somewhere, I will go to the next page. This other expenses here, if you see here, we have indirect cost. Indirect cost. Right? Indirect cost, direct cost are material, labor, and expenses. For all the indirect costs, you can say overhead also. Overheads. Expenses, overheads. Right? Therefore, these overheads, you can put that into two elements. We will discuss that in later. One is called variable overhead, other one is fixed overhead. Variable overhead, other one is fixed overhead. This variable overhead, fixed overhead, you can divide that into two. Variable overhead, fixed overhead, you can divide that into two. One is production related, fixed overhead, production related, fixed overhead, non-production related. Production related overheads are indirect cost which occurring within the factory. Right? Non-production overhead outside factory. Therefore, I will come back now here. Therefore, direct cost, I will add all production related overheads. I will add all production related overheads. Direct cost plus production related overheads. Examples of production related overheads: salary of a supervisor, depreciation of a factory machinery, salary of a supervisor, depreciation of factory machineries, rent of a factory. What about rent of a finished goods warehouse? Rent of a finished goods warehouse.
That goes to admin expense.
Admin expense is a not production, non-production overheads. Indirect cost, non-production overheads. But factory rent related to factory. Right? Therefore, production overhead. Some examples are there. The total of direct cost plus production overhead we call production cost. Or you can say factory cost. Right? Direct cost plus any production related overheads, that is part of your factory cost. Therefore, when the product comes out from the factory, this is the total cost the product is carrying. Direct cost plus any cost within the factory. Later we will be studying, when you go to these costing techniques, how you will absorb, how you will add that cost to this product. There are different techniques available. We something called marginal costing, something called absorption costing, something called activity-based costing is part of your syllabus. This how the production overheads you will be add that to the final product. Say for example, you have a factory, you are producing only 1000 units. Your volume is very less. Your volume is very less. Therefore, on that particular scenario, we cannot add all the production over to the final product. Therefore, customer will not buy this. If you take this activity, brother, we have only 2 students here. The total rent of this particular activity, we cannot charge from you. Therefore, it's a case by case based on the management decision that will change. Right? The production costing, absorption, costing techniques. We have 3 different techniques. How you will add that to the final product or services, case by case it will change. Based on your volume, based on your activity, based on your issue, every decision. Right? Therefore, in standard, in addition to your direct cost, you will add one portion of this particular production related cost. You will add to this basket, put into this one. Therefore, if the product is coming out from the factory, it has a cost. That is we call factory cost. Still, this product is not given to customer, not ready for sale. It will go to the finished goods warehouse. Right? Any other expenses are included. Outside factory, admin expenses, rent of a finished goods warehouse, cost of a salesperson, depreciation of a delivery vehicle. Delivery vehicle is not related to production, external to factory. Therefore, cost involving that. Therefore, and overall to see the performance of the company, performance of the particular product, performance of particular services, we have to find out what is the total cost related to this particular activity. What is the total cost? Therefore, when you prepare your profitability statements, the performance related indicators, you will try to understand that what is the total cost, production related, non-production related, of identifying the performance of a given product or service. That's what we have told here. We have non-production overheads. Therefore, non-production overheads will be added as part of your cost card. Therefore, I will add that here, non-production overhead. I will add that here, non-production overhead. I will add that non-production overhead. Non-production overheads to the factory cost, if you add that, you will end up getting your full cost or total cost. End up getting your full cost or total cost. Full cost or total cost. Therefore, this is a total cost of a product per unit, right? Available. Now, when you come to this non-production overheads, in your like P&L, you know, your P&L profit and loss account, after sales, we'll study that in F3 also, your cost of goods sold, you will end up getting your gross profit. Therefore, the cost of goods sold, you know that indirectly we can say this is type of a direct cost only. Right? And after all these cost of goods sold, you will have the selling and distribution expenses, administration expenses, right? Finance expenses. These are some examples of non-production overheads. They are not related to production, not related to your final cost of a product or services. Clear? Therefore, this is we call standard cost card. Therefore, from your cost accounting journey, right? Therefore, will be developed based on this.
But this is really, this is relevant to the manufacturing process.
Not always manufacturing.
I mean, for example,
if you take a sales business,
trading
business, what happened is,
involving in the
now here trading business, what happened? The direct cost. Take the direct cost. I am buying this, right?
Yeah.
I buy for 1 real. Therefore, that's my total cost of this for me trading. I am not producing, but the cost of this final product is 1 real. Therefore, direct material, labor, expense, everything is 1 real for this.
Yeah. For now, for example, we are bringing for transportation directly.
Yes.
Does it include into the costing?
For
example, if we import, we pay freight.
Yes, transport cost.
Yeah.
Right, we call landed cost.
Landed cost.
Landed cost. Landed cost also part of it, direct cost.
Direct.
But for example, demurrage, no.
You got to ask the question whether if I avoid paying the cost, can I have the item with me?
Yes.
And as long as you can have it, then that's not direct.
Direct cost.
If you don't pay and then they don't deliver to you,
That is part
but
of
the demurrage is not their problem. Demurrage, you did not meet their condition.
Yes.
So
Demurrage
that's,
are not part of direct cost.
Yeah,
But freight, CNF, cost and freight.
Insurance,
Insurance, all these stuffs.
So
They are
I
part
have a
of.
simple
Now, if
question.
our business, before you come and discuss with him, I am working for a trading business. We import from different countries.
Yeah.
Right? It has a FOB value, invoice value, plus there is a freight, shipping, and all the stuff are there. Therefore, in our system, what we do is we cost that product, right? Plus invoice value, plus all these landed cost stuffs.
Yeah.
Therefore, in my trading business, that's my direct cost.
Yes. Yeah.
That's my direct cost.
right.
Now, if you take this sales business, what is sales direct cost? The cost of the material that you took. He had to pay some amount to some publisher. Right? My lecture fees, for example. Therefore, these all stuffs are direct cost of this activity. Right? Therefore, if we go to manufacturing, we are putting that in different elements like this.
Yeah.
Clear? Right. Like that for the business, case by case, to change. But for all the business or any industry specific, you should have direct cost and indirect cost.
Bottom line, the principle has to
Principle has to be applied. It will not change. Right? Anyway, that's about direct material, the direct labor and direct expense, and total cost, non-production overhead.
Small question.
Yes.
There is direct labor, direct material.
Yeah.
You have standard units and you have standard calculation method.
Correct.
For the overheads,
Yes,
you
we
don't
have
the method.
That's what they said.
That's why yes. The way that is
you
done.
have this one.
Yes.
That's what he said that we will cover later.
Yes.
The
Now how you
forthcoming-
will absorb the overheads? Because overheads you cannot absorb because say for example if you take this classroom, if no classes, he no need to pay me lecture fees. It's change against my activity. But rent he has to pay. Rent he has to pay.
So there should be
Therefore, there should be a mechanism, is a realistic, should be a reasonable mechanism to absorb that, to add that to the final product or services. To do that, as of now, we have 3 techniques available. Right, we study that in section B, which we call marginal costing, absorption costing, and activity-based costing. In addition to these 3 techniques, when you go to the second level performance management, we have a concept that is called throughput accounting. Throughput. Throughput accounting is not a costing technique, but it's a concept how you will apply this type of expenses in a business which follow in a demand based on the demand of a customer, just in time,
Yes.
based on this type of business process, manufacturing model.
That's the latest techniques developed by Japanese people.
Japanese. Right, therefore that comes in section B. Right, therefore material cost, direct material labor and direct expenses also.
Yeah.
That also will based on the units. But this production, fixed overheads, if there is no activity, you cannot add them. If there is activity, you will add them based on certain predefined basis. Those bases which we can use to different 3 techniques: marginal costing techniques, absorption costing techniques, and ABC, activity-based costing.
Related to the trading, which you say, so
Yeah.
that land freight, that means the
Landed cost.
landed cost, which
Yes.
we can consume as a direct expense
Direct expenses, exactly.
and that category.
Yeah, direct expenses. Right,
After
for
that,
example,
we get the gross profit.
yes. Now in our business, we are getting containers. Okay, when containers comes to our warehouse, we use laborers to download, unload them.
Yes.
To unloading expenses. Therefore, that unloading expenses also we are adding to part of direct cost.
Direct cost under trading account.
Trading business. Right? Now these expenses, that freight forwarding and all the stuff, direct expense. Therefore, end of the day, when the product comes to your warehouse, that comes with the direct cost, invoice value, any labors associated of unloading the stuff, so drivers, salaries and all related to that activity, plus any freight forwarding expenses, customs and all are part of your direct expenses. Okay?
Even for this manufacturing, they bring raw material. Everything.
Whatever, yes. Now, manufacturing raw material is straightforward. You need to use for the production. Labor is straightforward. Without labor, you cannot use. Right?
Supervisor salary
Supervisor comes under here.
under here, under the
Production overhead. Supervisor, factory supervisor. Factory supervisor. He is within the factory supervising the activity but not directly involving in the production. Under him there will be three different processes. One is producing this, another one is producing this one. There will be three different products are going to three different plants. And therefore his salary, part of the factory cost are not direct cost, indirect cost. Now direct cost is an indirect expense. Fine? Right. You can see the definitions are given here, the same formula that we discussed. Direct cost, indirect cost, and that this formula, this table that we have done. Right? They have material, direct material plus indirect materials, labor, direct labor plus indirect labor, expenses, direct expenses plus indirect expenses. That is total direct cost. See, they have used the word here, overhead.
for indirect they use it overhead.
Overhead. Therefore, total indirect cost will be not indirect material. This total is indirect cost, that you can say overhead or indirect cost. Right? I mentioned that also. Right. Now let us move to the other one. Selling price formula. This is basic stuff for you all.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm also learning a lot today.
Yeah, sure.
But he is master.
Research.
We have learned from him actually.
But you keep doing that.
Yeah, you too,
Yeah.
since long.
Yes.
I started teaching in 1989. When I'm doing my oral exams, I'm teaching oral classes.
Okay.
Hajaratnam sir.
Just 1 minute.
Shalom,
Hajaratnam sir.